Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to leg 3 of Dave Tries to Fly Beechcraft across the Atlantic. Today we are going from Goose Bay, Newfoundland, Canada to Kangerlussuaq in Greenland, because it's basically the middle of a fuel. You can see we're just getting IFR clearance and taxi clearance. Off we go on the taxi, and yeah, again, starting this flight, I think this is kind of moving into dawn. We will not be landing at night, I can guarantee you that. This is one of the longer legs of the trip, and it's one of the least fun, just because most of it is over water. In fact, almost all of it is just flying over water, so there's nothing really to see. Here we are getting takeoff clearance, wind 003 at 8, and because I record in a weird way, yes, everything will pop up that was happening at the time. So off we go. All my Steam notifications are popping up, and I don't know why, because I've disabled the Steam overlay, so they shouldn't in theory be happening, but Steam ignores that apparently. There's the GPS up. I did do some testing, and yeah, if I'd pressed the CDI button on the GPS, you can see it there at the bottom left, yeah, that would have automatically done all these turns for me. I did a really stupid thing by ignoring that button. Yeah. So, with this being a super long flight, I spend the majority of it kind of doing other things. I think I was watching a stream of Pokemon again at the time, and just kind of chilling out and then watching whatever, double checking that everything was working as far as little nav map, which is how I track my flights, and kind of keeping an eye out for ATC shouting at me to do something or other. I had flight sim open pretty much all the time. There you can see through 5,000, just lower down the fuel mix. If I didn't do that, the plane would basically stall out of the sky. So that is a necessary part of the flight, and you can see that the airspeed is reducing because I'm going up a bit faster than I should. There we go, cleared up to 10,000 feet. That's going to be our cruise altitude. I think one of these legs I did increase the cruise altitude to 15,000, to a bit more. Or if not one of these legs, definitely in a flight that I did recently. Just because, if I remember right, I increased the cruise altitude because I was stuck in the clouds and I was getting annoyed by it. So I went up over the clouds, and I was cruising at 15,000, which made the plane fly incredibly slowly, as it turns out. So this is another leg where this is, I think, the leg where there was the least ATC, because it turns out there's actually a stretch between Goose Bay and Kangerlussuaq, well, Nuuk, that is basically uncontrolled. Like you'll see some ATC popping up, but not that much. So there was quite a long period of this flight where I was just kind of waiting for something to happen. Anything. Nothing really did. I was just kind of sat back cruising and chilling out. This, by the way, in real life took 2 hours and 10 minutes. In game, I believe it was a 6 or 7 hour flight in the Beech. But obviously with time acceleration, which is now on, became a lot shorter, as I just knocked... yeah, there's the prop sync kicking in, making the plane do all sorts of wobblies. As I change the props. And really, you know, this is the view for the majority of the flight. You can see some clouds spawning in the distance. Kind of got lucky with this cruising altitude. We're kind of flying in... Oh, that's a weather reload. Yeah, something you guys might have noticed throughout the last two videos, and this one as well, is that the weather sometimes just disappears and then comes back all of a sudden. I use, because I'm bound to get the question eventually, and I'm just going to answer it now. For weather, I use FSXWX, so that's Foxtrot Sierra Whiskey. No, Foxtrot Sierra X-Ray Whiskey X-Ray. I don't use Open Sky or Active Sky or whatever it's called. Basically because I don't see the point of having it when there's a freeware alternative that does the same thing. For textures I use Rex 4 Texture Direct, which I really like. For the cloud textures and the sky textures is Rex 4. Ground textures are provided by Orbex, Orbex Global. And I've got some like random add-on airports. I think some are Orbex, some are just random freeware. I think I've got Dublin Airport is actually because I got it off a friend of mine. It's the Aerosoft Dublin, but I don't know how old it is. He gave me the download link in his key, but I couldn't find an update, so maybe it's the current Orbex Dublin or Aerosoft Dublin X, but I don't know for sure. So yeah, I do plan on like buying some airports and stuff. Actually, I'm gonna come to a point with FSX where I just stop buying new things for it and just save up to get X-Plane, because that's the sim that I think I'd prefer. I watch a lot of streams in X-Plane. I know the P3D is theoretically better, but for me, what on earth was I doing there with the mouse? I think I had something open over the game. Sometimes you'll see the mouse just pop in and do random stuff. That's when I've got something open over the game and I'm just double checking something. But P3D is, the professional one, and the some people say the right one. But I personally, in terms of flight sims, like FSX is a really good starter. And then for me, it's X-Plane, I think, is the next step for me. P3D, honestly, I don't think it's worth the money for me. Like, I don't count this as a really hardcore hobby. I'd count iRacing as my hardcore hobby. So, good lord, something just exploded. So, like, I'd kind of just want to play FSX or flight sims as a game. And X-Plane just has from what I've seen and heard, just has a better freeware market out there. So it's not as expensive to run as P3D or FSX, to a decent level. FSX freeware tends to be a bit crap. And P3D tends to be paid everything from PMDG and Aerosoft and everybody else who charges £1 million pounds for everything. So that's kind of my thoughts on the various flight sims that are out there. I know there's like tons more, but the big three: FSX, X-Plane, and P3. I know a Shadowbox. So if you're enjoying this and you want more structured flight sim and more good, better than me flight sim, go check out a Shadowbox. He does an air hauler series that I'm really enjoying. I don't know if he realizes this. I do still watch all of his videos. I'm really enjoying his air hauler series. Every time I see a video, I pretty much watch it instantly, or when I'm finished the video that I'm currently watching. And it's nice to just kind of chill out and watch some flight sim. I know he's thinking of getting P3D, or kind of planning on getting P3D. I'm more kind of leaning towards X-Plane, just because I think it'd be a better fit for me, personally. And that, because fun little fact, P3D is really, really good if you want to fly airliners, and well, it's better if you want to fly GA aircraft like the Beech. I'm more of an airliner fan, so X-Plane is more set up around those, and I'd be much happier with X-Plane as a direct result. Like I'm kind of rushing to get, you know, airliners and this and bigger planes, even the Dash 8, or the one that I'm currently looking at is a Dornier. I can just click out here and I can look at air hauler because I actually have it open at the moment. The one that I'm looking at is a Dornier DO228. And I'll probably be able to get it in the next few days in game. And the reason I want that is it's got a cargo capacity of 2,429 to be exact. Cruise speed is low, 150 knots. Range is 715 miles, which doesn't bother me. Most of my flights are only 300-400 miles at most anyway. But the interesting thing for me is it can be used to carry 16 passengers, so I can start up a passenger service. After that, I'm kind of looking into maybe a Twin Otter or something like that. Like maybe an Embraer 120, which I probably need. Oh, I'm just looking at the numbers here. I probably need to change this max passengers because that doesn't look right. But I should say that in air hauler I have started construction on my second base, which I'll be flying out of tonight in real life. Well, I won't be flying out of it in real life. I'll be flying out of it kind of in sim tonight in air hauler, with some really good jobs that I've spawned there. So my second base, for anybody interested, is in Shannon Airport, and the reason I've picked Shannon as opposed to pretty much any other airport or moving into a new country for a second base is because, number one, I wanted an Irish base that I could use for the entirety of the game, no matter what plane I had. And number two, Shannon in real life, and I know this because it's true, has been used and can be used, and maybe is still used, I'm not sure, but definitely was in the past used for a 747 service. Aer Lingus used to fly their 747s because they could. Because Dublin Airport has such a short main runway, and Shannon Airport has a really long one that was at one point an alternate for the space shuttle, or an abort to alternate for the space shuttle. It was at one point an alternate for the space shuttle at, I think it's 9,000 feet or something like that. But Aer Lingus, because Dublin Airport's so short and the runway 28. Do I still have that Google search I had earlier open? Oh, I do. It is 28. Runway 28 is the longest runway. It's only 8,600 feet, which sounds quite long, but it can't really take a 747 at full capacity. Aer Lingus used to have to take off in Dublin with a plane that was fueled basically to Shannon, and then because they used to run a 747 service, if you didn't know this. They used to have to take off from Dublin, land in Shannon, fuel the damn thing in Shannon, and then fly to, I think it was to JFK. Now, of course, Aer Lingus flies direct Dublin to Newark, JFK, and a few other places with their A330s, and I think they've got at least one, because I've seen it on Flight Radar, at least one 757, and I've no idea why they have the 757. It's literally the only Boeing in their fleet. But they've got a small fleet of A330s for the transatlantic flights, a fleet of A320s for kind of European and decent length flights, and then a couple of I think I can't remember what their smallest plane is. It's ATR 72s they have for the short hauls. So the flight that I used to take, which was Dublin to Newcastle, granted I did it on Ryanair, and they, obviously being Ryanair, had 737s. That's now operated by Aer Lingus, that route, and is an ATR 72, so it'll be... I'm kind of annoyed that I didn't get to go on that flight. Now, didn't get the Aer Lingus flight ever, because I have only ever flown on 737-800s. Never flown on any other range of 737, any other, even subtype, just the 800. And I'd love to fly in an Airbus at some point. I plan on, if ever I have money, You know, doing some travelling and getting to fly in an Airbus and getting to fly in like some of the cooler planes. I'd love to go on a 747 someday, though I know they're being basically phased out for passenger service. They are much more useful and convenient as a cargo plane because you can always fill a 747 full of cargo, whereas passengers are notorious for not buying tickets. So about halfway through this flight, I'm not going to skip anything this time. I'm going to sit here with you guys for the entirety of it, because why not? And I'm going to talk planes for a bit, because I can. So, I think one of the questions that some of you guys might want to ask is, like, what planes would I want to travel on in real life? Obviously, the 747, as I've already said. I do quite enjoy 737s. They're kind of quite comfortable planes, a bit noisy but comfortable. You can see in game that I'm fiddling with my fuel and just kind of getting a good idea of how I'm doing GAN's destination and whatnot. I reset the GAN's views for some reason, but a plane that I'd love to even see, I've never seen one, is the A380. I'd also love to see the Concorde, but that's kind of difficult. I'd love to fly in one as well, and that's not even possible anymore, which is a shame. I'd love to fly in something supersonic. So I know there's a few supersonic jets in the design phase at the moment, and kind of, I don't even want to say design phase. Like, they've got designs and they're kind of theory crafting the planes at the moment. They're trying to figure out, well, is this even, is this viable as a craft, and then is this viable as a passenger craft, and is this really something people want? And I would love to do some sort of supersonic flight. I'd love to fly basically through time, because that's, you know, the Concorde flying London to New York would actually take off in London at, we'll say, 3 p.m. I think that might have been one of their real flight times, and they'd land in New York at 2:30. So you'd actually gain half an hour. I could imagine that wouldn't be very good, or that might be good for, like, preventing jet lag, or it might be worse. I don't know, but very good for business guys. But one thing that is cool is flying towards the US. You get, like, on one of the night flights, you actually get to see a sunrise, because the damn plane flies so fast. It flies faster than the Earth rotates. So taking off at London just after dusk, you actually get to see a sunrise as you are coming into the US. Also, it's the plane that, like, the passenger jet that got the world's strangest clearance, which is it was a clearance to, was it 42,000 feet and beyond, or 41,000 and beyond, or something like that. It got a clearance to a height, and after that, because nothing else could fly as high as the Concorde, it got clearance to one height, and basically however high it went, it went. It might have been 50,000, and then, like, it was kind of, in essence, a block clearance, because the highest the Concorde ever really went was 60,000, or it might have been clearance to 42 and blocked up to 50. But the strange and cool thing that I loved about the Concorde is it never flew straight and level. It was always climbing. So it entered Super Cruise, obviously at Mach 2.1, and it wasn't flying straight and level at Mach 2.1 like my Beech is right now. You know, that's not gaining altitude, it's not losing altitude. The Concorde was always climbing to some extent, because that's the way the Concorde was built, was just to go up, because it was using the same amount of fuel, but it kept having less and less fuel in the tanks, and there was no point in reducing the throttle, because that would slow the Concorde down. So they just let it climb constantly. And then the only time that it really descended was it 60 or 70 miles or 100 miles from the coast, because they had to They had to be under Mach 1 within 25 or 50 miles of the coastlines. Otherwise, they'd break every window within a few miles. Because the sonic boom is just a huge bubble the plane travels in. So everybody, like on the Atlantic, when the Concorde was flying over, got to hear the sonic boom, and then got to hear a second one or something like that. It was kind of odd. But the Concorde moved so much air in front of it that it just had this hilarious sonic boom bubble around it. That I think was like 7 or 8 miles wide. So you can see now, through the clouds, occasional glimpses of white and black. That's actually Greenland. Because I neglected to mention this before, and I'm going to mention it now. It's been snowing in Greenland. We're actually getting our approach as well right now. But it's apparently been snowing in Greenland recently, and Greenland is notorious for being icy. Iceland, of course, being notorious for being green. Thank you, Vikings, for being trolling gits. Yeah. The Vikings wanted more people to go to Greenland, so they called it green. They wanted less people to go to Iceland, so they said it was icy. That's how those countries got their names. Or those islands, I guess. If you look at Iceland on some maps, it appears in Icelandic, and it just looks like it says island, and it looks like the most ridiculous thing. So you'll see this island that I know is Iceland, you know is Iceland, but on it will just be a label island. Because in Icelandic I think it's Iceland. That's me. Yeah, you saw me move the course bug there. Something that I haven't done much before, the yellow arrow on the compass. That was so that I know which runway I'm heading off to. I actually looked it up on Little Nav Map to get the exact runway location. That's a visual approach. Because something that maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't. The guys that are more interested in flight sims will know this for sure. The numbers of a runway will say 28 in this situation. That means it's roughly at 280 degrees. It tells you kind of the rough direction of the runway. However, it's not always perfect, because runway 28 might be at heading 278 or 283 or 282 or 278. 277 could be 27 or 28. There's kind of a weird grey area there, but it's kind of, this was about 5 degrees. No, anything over 26 or 275 would be 28. Anything under 285 would be 28. So there's like it's this kind of general direction that that airports use, just to make it a bit easier on pilots. In reality, pilots will have available to them charts of every airport. Like, that's why I'm using a Little Nav Map, and I occasionally use Sky Vector as well. If I think Sky Vector will be a bit more useful to me. But Little Nav Map allows me to see my kind of a vague course that I should maybe have coming into an airport, and if I run without ATC, I'll have that exact course. And I can kind of plan stuff there and come up with flight plans and figure out what exactly it is I want to do. And more importantly, get airport information and parking spots and see what taxiways are there. That's what I use Little Nav Map for, is a lot of the navigation is that. And yeah, you'll sometimes see me in these, and even spoiler alert, when I'm streaming FSX, because I plan on doing that Friday. You'll see me just kind of go out of the window for a bit and stop focusing on FSX and do something off camera, off the screen. Especially on approach and whatnot. That's me actually getting airport information. And this right here is me trying to get the plane into a nice descent to 3,600 feet. Because we're being brought in to the airport now. Very low pressure as well, 29 or 68. That's incredibly low pressure. Standard being 29 or 9 or 2. So we're 30 millimeters or 0.3 inches of mercury down on what it should be. almost. And now you can see the ground kind of emerging from the clouds, and oh, that might actually just be more clouds underneath. Looking at it again. But I can tell you that the ground is, in fact, no, that is the ground. Yeah, very icy and white. Oh no, it is more clouds. It's very hard to decide because the ground, I can tell you for a fact, was icy and white around here. And when we get down below the clouds, below probably about 5,000 or 6,000 feet, you'll be able to see the ground emerging. It's really nice. It's snow covered. Orbix did a really good job of getting the white very white. And this is really the first time you'll get to see something cool, which is Toposim. I think Toposim, Western Europe, covers Iceland as well, or Greenland as well. It definitely covers Iceland. I can't quite remember if Greenland's included. And our next leg, by the way, is to Iceland, to the island of Iceland. We'll be heading into Reykjavik. So the main airport there. I might as well tell you what the next 3 legs are going to be, the final 3 legs. So this is our halfway point. So far we've been to Jenkins, Fremont, Ohio, which was our initial departure and where we got the plane from. We have been to Ogdensburg International, which was the end of the first leg, and you can see the ground now starting to emerge from the clouds, actually this time. And it's, yeah, number 1, very, very, very turbulent here, and number 2, very, very white on the ground. Yes, it is. It's been snowing a lot in Greenland. You can see as I look out the window at the snow. I think I was actually looking for the airport. Leg 3 or leg 2 ended in Goose Bay, Newfoundland. Leg 4 is ending here in Kangerlussuaq, which I'm probably mispronouncing, in Greenland. Leg 4 will bring us to Iceland, and it sounds like we're really close to Ireland, but there is actually an intermediate leg because I worked out some numbers and the fuel wasn't quite enough to get to Ireland from Iceland. So the final leg, or the second to last leg, is to Stornoway Airport in the north of Scotland, and that's literally just a fuel range stop. I mean, all of them are fuel range stops, but some of the, like, I've kind of felt like all of these were just logical stopping points, because if you're doing a transatlantic flight in real life in something like a Beech, and it does happen, believe it or not, people do pull off ridiculous flights. If you're wondering where the airport is, because I can't see it here, and you can see me looking around, I thought it was on top of that hill there, thought it was on top of that hill down there maybe. Well, I stopped looking around like a madman. Stop looking around like a madman, Dave, please. You can't see it. You see that ridge straight ahead? Like, directly ahead, the giant ridge? Yeah, that's me pointing it out there because I've just realised it's at the other side of that. And we're going to have a very interesting approach here. I still think that it's down on the ground there, and oh, that's the moment of realisation that the airport is built at the edge of a cliff. So I'm going to be tuning tower and just watch the vertical speed indicator, because we're going to dive. 2,000 feet per minute descent, because we need to get down over the end of this cliff. And there's 2,500 briefly, because there was no way I was going to get that down with a sane rate of descent, and we are down with a greased landing after an approach dive and on a wet, technically, runway. I think it's supposed to be snowing, but the game recognizes it as rain. So it's off to the viewing point again, and I'm gonna leave you guys here. I'll leave you by saying I've been RainbowDave. You've been watching Flight Simulator X. Of course, the taxi will continue, and the video itself will end when I'm actually stopped. You've been watching Flight Simulator X. Until next time, stay safe, and goodbye.